easiest way to really understand the I Chings is through a practical example. So this is my human design chart. You can see, look how beautiful it is. This is me, essentially, and there's so much that we can read into that. But for the I Chings, we're looking at the numbers, but we need to have a little bit of a foundation of understanding before you do jump into the numbers. Otherwise, it has no context. So the centers that are colored in are what we call defined, and they are consistent. They have been consistent in your life, your whole life. Every single time you wake up, they feel the same. In different environments, you connect with them in the same way. They are consistent. The centers that are open are our inconsistent. They're what we call our undefined centers, and they're really open to interpretation. They're open to be influenced by the people around you. They're open to be influenced by what is happening biochemically in your body. They are open to be influenced by world events around you as well, on so many different layers. And the issue is that they are essentially inconsistent. So you don't know how they're going to happen. And that's where we start to dance around being okay with control, being okay with out of control, and what we anticipate and how safe and secure we feel within those centers. Right, so the big example, if you don't know yet, my journey to kinesiology was led through a dyslexic and ADHD diagnosis around year 11 of my life, when school started to get a little bit tough and I stopped doing gymnastics and everything was just a little bit more unmanageable. And that in itself has been the biggest blessing in disguise, right? But you can see that in my chart. So I'll put it here and I'll look at this one. So essentially 11 in itself is left and right brain integration. So you're looking at physiologically what happens across the corpus callosum. When you're looking at dyslexia, you're looking at letter reversal and confusion and left and right brain patterning. So I was always going to look at the world through that lens, but it was inconsistent. So I couldn't make sense of it. When you have a look at the shadow emotion is obscurity, and you think about ADHD and going off on the tangent and making meaning out of the most bizarre thing to make meaning of. That's like the story of my life. Where the 43 is deafness, right? I would probably say that my family think that I'm deaf half the time, but it's deafness to acoustic frequencies. So what are you picking up within the field, and what meaning are you making from the words, the tone, the understanding of the depth of what the language is, and coming from a place of deafness. So for anyone that has like that ADHD kind of trait, it is that, you know, not able to function in the busy, noisy room, being distracted with having too many people in the classroom, picking up on too much information. So like my brain was picking up on everything and it was inconsistent. I had no language to speak about it. I had no place to measure. I couldn't feel one thing one day and then have it consistently the next day. So it just feels that inconsistency. When then you flip that, and you can see on my chart here, I have a lot happening in the root and in the spleen, and the spleen is all that intuition. The two little examples being, so I've got the 57 and the 44, you can see here. And the 57 actually, through the Ichings, teaches us that it's our clairaudience, right? So our ability to hear intuition. And whether that is hearing through the physical words, having that download of knowledge, or having that sensation through the ears and the feeling of that as the senses, it still is that intuitive gene key that connects to that. It is, the gene key itself is wind over wind, and in the gene keys, wind is that spirit, hearing of the spirit and that moving around of that element within the spirit. So like it's the wind of change. How are you, if you quieten your mind and listen, what information are you getting that you can intuitively drive change within your own life and other people's life? And you can see that in the work that I do in clinic, right? But that's something that has always been consistent, and something that I probably haven't consistently owned, to the fact that that is what's happening on the internal aspect. And when you compare that to the gene key, like the 44, you can see that 44 actually is not only its own gene key, that it then becomes a channel. So like the 57, I would have had all of this information, but like, what do I do with it? Where does it go? Who does it land on? And I might have made that try to land on everyone one day, and I might have like been absolutely lost in where it lands, and then held all that information in my head, and then just felt overwhelmed from that load. Where the 44 then comes into a channel, and the 44, it's the intuition is, it's a clair, but it's clair smell. I don't actually know what it's really called. And it's the ability to pick everything up through your senses. And I have always had a super strong sense of smell. And in that, being thrown by those individuals that wear too much perfume, because I can't smell them out, or that synthetic smell, and walk into that room and I can't actually smell all that information that my brain receives, and I feel like my intuitive gifts are then cut off, and I'm not able to tap into something that makes me feel consistent, and I drive forward with it, and I rely on it consistently, and then it's like cut off with synthetics or sprays or things like that. And that really makes sense to me, if you know me, and you've been along for the journey. But it also makes sense to own that and to step into it as a gift. So when you're looking at 44, it's heaven over wind. So it's again stilling the body and making sure that the wind within the mind is quiet, and then being able to tap into that higher consciousness, being heaven, where spirit is the wind talking, the heaven is that next level up. And you can see that I've got that channel. So when the 44 goes to the channel, it comes to the channel of surrender, or the channel of transformation. And that is something that is really beautiful when you step into it, and you can hold on to that gene key, because you want to lean in to your sense of smell being in a channel, as opposed to your sense of clairaudience, because like you've got that information, but then where does it go to? And where are you bridging that to? And like intuitively sensing things. So as a channel, then it becomes the ability to use your intuition to transform the people around you, to have that right information for the person at the right time, the right place, to be able to sell, to offer, to move them in that direction. And that's just an example of 4 gene keys, where as a child and the conditioning growing up, I wouldn't have ever talked about being clairaudience or having a sense of smell and intuition, being able to smell if someone's sick, or being able to smell if someone's happy, someone is in the right relationship. They're not the conversations that a 6, 7, 8-year-old kid is having, but they're having the conversations of letter confusion and obscure thoughts and all of those kind of things. And so my whole growing up, I was conditioned to believe that I was more of my open center through those lenses than I was of my defined center through the gene key leads. And that's just like a massive aha moment, because I can balance myself on the table all I can, and I have, and I'm in a really good place with all of those things. But to be empowered of how do I move forward, and how am I actually supposed to show up in the world, is like, that's where the magic happens with the I Chings. So you can go on your journey and you can do all the things, but you can also just purchase the I Ching's report, and it just has all your individual I Chings within them. It's written in the eyes of the I Chings, the gates, and the gene keys. It gives you your shadow, your gift, and your city. So it tells you your shadows you're not ever supposed to solve. Excuse me. They're just supposed to direct you. They're your triggers to life, and you're supposed to be moving towards where your gifts are. So just don't expect to be in the city level. You're just sort of working with your gifts and directing yourself in that path. What the shadow's up, where am I turning away? Where am I leaning towards? And they have how that connects within your body, how that connects to your safety and your security, what your fears are, whether they're a tribal gate, whether they're collective conscious, all of those kind of things. And you can just work through within your chart. You get your report, and then you're like, okay, so I'm going to have a look at these ones because they're in open centers first. And then I'm going to have a look at ones that are my channels as my second there. And then everything else in between, you'll work out as you go. You keep on coming back to it, but your channels are your gift. and the way that you work best. And the open centers with the highlighted gene keys hexagrams is where we're most conditioned to believe that we should be something else. As always, I hope this helps.